So something kind of on the meditation, but also with low end. We can talk about all of this, right? So simultaneously thinking about when I was in my meditation for an hour, and I think you posted something 2 days ago. You did an hour and you said, I put the timer on, I sit there. A lot of the time I'm in thought, but I'm not judging it. That's what it is, right? And that's the process. So today I'm in this hour. I actually had a lot of it. It was easier this time than last time. I was pretty down with just sitting there. Felt really good. But I was thinking about our discussion today. I was thinking about what meditation, how it informs the practice. And what I could remember, I was talking with Spider about this the other night. I can remember 9 out of 10 moves that I make, right? So therefore I'm going into things with intention. So I'm coming at it, I know why I use a certain plugin. So we talk about favorite plugins, it's kind of irrelevant. It's why do I use a certain plugin, right? These are kind of better questions.
What are you trying to achieve?
Well, yeah, what am I trying to achieve? So I want to have minimal tools, the minimum effective dose, like you like to say, how to get to the desired result. So when I think about I want something to feel modulated, I'm going to reach for something that does a shift left-right that makes things sound not so sterile out of a synth box or something.
Do you want to name them, or just you don't want to?
I don't. Yeah. Sure, I just don't want to talk equipment as much. But yes, the Good Hertz, Wow, and Flutter tape machine emulator is really good for that. And I'm thinking deliberately about these moves. So when I'm meditating and I get up and I go to do the first mix of the day, it's usually my fastest. I'm not second guessing. I know where to get on things. You can look at the sessions. They're super minimal, what plugins that I'm using. And it's all because I'm prepared, right? We started off the conversation by talking about that. Talking about habits, right? So I right before this, I wanted to brush my teeth just in case there's like something going on this live thing.
You look great.
And I switched where my toothbrush is on my counter for the first time since I moved into this loft 4.5 years ago, right? So my brain is reaching to the right for the toothpaste, for the toothbrush, even though it's now on the left. And this has been 2 weeks, and I'm still reaching to the right, right? So we know that we're creatures of habits. We know that we don't know why we do the things that we do, right? So I can't tell you why I do the things that I do, but I kind of can when I'm in a meditative state, right? So I don't think about what I'm trying to achieve when I'm trying to achieve it, but I can look back now and say, that's why I did it. And I know 9 out of 10 moves that I make. And I think meditation helps with that, right? It's the kind of distillation of all the internal or the external affectation of the world, and then deliberate output, and where to focus your energy.
It's funny. I was going to say I've had a lot of discussions about meditation with people in the last week because I've been posting more about it. I've been a daily 10-minute meditator on and off, probably with like a 90% compliance for the last like 5 years, but just started this adding an hour a day of unguided, just eyes closed. Yesterday was day 10, I think. And the thing I notice about it, and we should talk about also meditation means so many different things to so many different people. It's sort of like saying exercise. Sure. You and I do a sort of a variety of meditations, but generally the idea being you're going to sit quietly, you're going to get lost in thought, and then you're going to recognize that you're lost in thought, oftentimes through a guide or focusing on your breath or something like that. Or I should say, you get lost in thought, and then you realize that you're lost in thought, and you come back to some centered place. For people who do TM, it's a mantra. If you do kind of Vipassana, it's just a breath. But something like the Waking Up course by Sam Harris has these guided meditations that are very much about a spectrum of things, but the fundamental is learning how to recognize that you're lost in thought. And what that does, like you said, it trains you to recognize that you have these automatic habits and then recognize that they exist so that you can go ahead and continue to do them, but it allows you to make more deliberate decisions about things that have become automatic.
Well, it's learning, unlearning, and then relearning, right?
And decide and choosing, like instead of just doing things automatically. So how does that connect that to low end for me?
Okay, so if you want to have expansive low end, you need to make room for it, right? So if you want to have this approach to life, and pinpoint and choose what to put your energy on in a given moment, you need to make room for it, right? You have to have less excuses. So I can have the excuse of the producer loved the rough, so I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to leave the loudness where it's at to make them happy and get this across the line with no friction, right? But if I want richer, deeper low end, I might have to do a bold move and turn everything down 6 dB or so to give myself headroom to craft that low end, right? So you have to be brave in a sense, because there's going to be a lot of work rebalancing things to make that energy of the rough come back. But you have to place the low end first in this context. So
that's how you're always thinking about records, right? You're always low end is where it starts.
Low.
Oh, did you wait? Lost you for a second?
Yeah, you froze. Okay, so yes, it's low end and vocal stack, right? But it's intentional, and it's not something you can dilly dally with. You know, you have to go in. You have to be like, okay, this is where I'm going to put it. And I don't think numerically. I'm not like, I'm putting my kick at -3 and it's going to peak there the entire time. I've never thought that. I think when I was listening to Skrillex a lot, when he was coming out with Bangarang, his kick was at 0, and I gave it a shot, and I put everything at 0. I had an L1 limiter on every bus that I had, like trying to get it to hit, like and still be dynamic. And I think that extreme version of this is what got me to where I am now, where it's kind of a feel thing, right? It kind of just settles in at a certain place. And I talk about this a lot with my close homies over here. Where like, I don't know how I do it. I just do it at this point. So, but coming back and taking a step back and non-judgmentally, like when you're meditating and you just start again, you begin again, I can say, well, I do know what I'm doing, right? I am lowering the volume of everything, and then I'm remaking that level up with EQ, right? So if I take 6 dB down overall, I might need 6 dB of 60 hertz of low end, right? So I might need to remake that amount. But now I have the headroom to do that. But then you can kind of control the release of that low end, and you have more control than letting the limiter dictate everything that happens in your mix in the low end. So
I definitely, I constantly succumb to the something is not clear, so I turn it up. I feel like everybody as a record maker is constantly trying to turn everything up to make it clear.
I think that's the opposite.
Yeah, very much.
I think of it the opposite, right? It's like, well, if someone keeps saying the vocal's louder, needs to be louder, I'm saying what's in the way of the vocal every time. I don't believe in vocal. I don't send a vocal up mix.
That's a really great truism for the mixing side, or the engineering side, is making room for things rather than turning them up.
Yeah, it's like when you're
which might be turning other things down too.
When you're like a lighting set designer, you're not necessarily lighting the star, you're lighting the set around her. Like a David Lynch film, it's like the red curtains are lit up, the lead is not lit up.
Yep.
So we're carving space and creating space behind and illuminating the person in front of it. So that, thinking numerically, that's going to exist in the mid-range most of the time, right? It's always different. We're not going to talk about where it's going to sit. It's always different. The key of the song matters.
Definitely.
But you're carving mid-range out of other instruments. That being said, in a great arrangement done by a great producer with a great top line on it, that job is done for you most of the time. When I'm talking about creating headroom to get low end, though, that gets you in trouble, because that all kind of falls apart and you have to rebuild it. So you have to constantly A/B with the rough to make sure you're recreating that vibe that was there. So that's why it takes a bit more work. It doesn't take much more time necessarily, but it takes more technical work to remake someone's energy when you're turning things down a substantial amount. And I think that's my approach always. And I'm not going to be the one that just sends it back the same volume or a little louder. It's just never going to be what I do. Interesting.
Yeah. Trying to, I feel like.
Does that make sense? Am I answering the question?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't even know if there was a question. I think we just started talking.
These are things we'll just, discussing low end. I mean, these are things that are would be an interesting, and one of the few and only things I would love to demonstrate one day is figure out how to do it on a proper stream with proper audio quality. Where I would
that's the challenge, right?
A gain structure approach, because I don't even know if everybody knows what gain structure even is.
That was actually the question I was going to ask after that is gain structure, gain staging, those sort of things. How do people learn about that these days? I guess because there's.
Can mixing be a form of meditation? Sorry, let's just jump on that for a second. Absolutely. Any creative process that can get you into a flow state is meditative, right? And I repeat myself a lot when I say this, but the minute you recognize you're in a flow state is when you're not in the flow state anymore. So you want to ride that flow state as long as possible. And when you start realizing that you're riding that, you can stay on it and you can find that gap of, all right, I'm making moves, but I'm in the flow state. You're going to get the song done faster because you're going to make the right deliberate moves because you're flowing through it. And
same with production, same with
I was going to say, when you were talking earlier about the capturing emotion in the moment in a song, that's your job as the producer and the songwriter. That's the job of every aspect of any creative process, is to not let that go away.
Just to capture things as they happen. Yes. And whether that's an emotional lyric of somebody writing a thing on the couch, or whether it's you by yourself making a mix get together.
Yes. So I think, oh my God, I'm getting mix notes sent to me right now. Right? We went over the hour, so I'm on. Anyway, it's fine.
We'll do another 10 minutes, and we'll pick it up again.
We'll do another 15. We'll go an hour and a half. We'll do a 90.
Go an hour and a half. 90 minutes. That sounds good.
Yeah. So thinking about, I try to hit that state as often as possible, and when I say try, that's probably the wrong language. One isn't trying to be in a flow state; you just become in one. And that's interesting. Music can be an object of meditation from Spider. Yeah. There's meditation music for that reason. I was contemplating even doing that today. I was thinking, should I do an hour meditation unguided, but have some sort of Zen Japanese garden music on in the background? I thought that was an interesting way to practice. I didn't do that yet, but I'm thinking about that as well.
Do you so one of the things, I feel like it took me a number of years of just making records and trying things in order to get to the place where I could get into a flow state with it. It seems like a lot of that is, I don't know, for some reason I always think of John Coltrane, where it's like you could play scales for years and years and years, and then at some point you don't think about the scales, you're just playing the instrument.
Yes.
I feel to an extent that's what you're talking about, which is you've done enough mixing, you've tried enough things to where now you can just sort of exist in it thoughtlessly. But if you add a mindful practice, add meditation, then you can basically make more of a deliberate choice of whether you let yourself just exist in the flow state versus analyze it. Is that how you think about it?
Yeah, because I fall in love over and over again with the process and the practice, right? I think.
How do you do that? That's a really important thing. I think a lot of people get, especially people that go from, I made records in my room for nobody and nobody cared about it. Then I started getting a few checks or started getting hired. Then all of a sudden I'm doing it for different reasons. How do you go back to, or how do you maintain that? Either go back, or how do you maintain?
I don't know.
Maybe you've never dealt with that challenge. I don't know.
No, I definitely have. I don't know. I genuinely love it so much. And I feel lucky that I get to make, music for a living. I think it's kind of lame to say that, but I truly mean it. I feel really lucky that this is what I get to do. I stay curious. I'm hanging out with people that, people will hit me with, oh, have you tried this new plugin? I'm usually like, no, I don't need another plugin. That's usually my response, but that's kind of I usually look into it anyway, and I just decide I don't need another version.
That's the contrarian in you, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's a fair amount of that, but a very curious, open-minded, contrarian status. But I genuinely love it. And I think even, we always touch on that I cook food. Cooking has become another creative outlet that is very similar playing to mixing, right? Balancing of ingredients, ingredients or the pieces of the song that are already given to me. The ingredients of the stew are pretty classic. I get to improv on the balances of them, and I can throw a couple little sprinkles in there of new things as I'm getting more comfortable, right? But that re-inspires the mix process too.
Yeah.
So I think about how I'm making something a bit more acidic in this stew, and I'm like, oh shit, that mix actually like gets spicier. Like, how do I add like this wide palate acid reaction to a mix that I feel like should be that way and brighter, but do that in my own concoction way. So I constantly just think of another way to frame it. It's probably the same thing, just reframed.
Well, that's an interesting thing that I've found. I've given this advice to a lot of people. I've taken it myself. When I forget to take it or I don't take it, my life is not as rich. I find it's really good to have a counterpoint to the main thing that we're doing. So to have either another creative outlet or psychological outlet that has different stakes. And I know not everybody deals with this. Maybe you have a version of it. Maybe that's what cooking is for you. But I find for me that if I'm making records and that process is really involved, and I'm my head is all the way in it, it's important for me to have some other process that I can balance off of it.
Yeah, I feel lucky and privileged that I get to make art for a living.